This is a report of the answers to the Michigan counselors' questions about the Counseling Compact. It's prepared by the Michigan Mental Health Counselors Association on February 10th, 2025. The Executive Board of the Michigan Mental Health Counselors Association consists of Chris DeBoer, President, Kristen Sankey, Treasurer, Carol Berger, Secretary. Dr. Joy Creel is a Member at Large, Dr. Larry Pfaff, Member at Large, Lori Rowe, Member at Large, and Dr. Elizabeth Teklinski, Education and Outreach Chair. Please note, our goal in this report is to ensure all stakeholders are well informed as Michigan considers its role in the Counseling Compact. To the best of our knowledge, the information in this report is accurate. However, due to the evolving nature of this issue, some details may change over time. Introduction to the Counseling Compact Survey Report. On January 30th, 2025, we distributed both a video and a written report outlining the current status of the Counseling Compact to all Michigan counselors. Following that, we invited all licensed professional counselors, LPCs, in Michigan to submit their questions and feedback. We extend our sincere appreciation to all those who took the time to thoughtfully complete the survey. Your input has provided valuable insight into the perspectives and concerns of LPCs across Michigan. This report presents an analysis of the feedback gathered regarding the potential adoption of the Counseling Compact. The respondents asked questions, provided their level of support or concern, and rated the value of informational resources from our previous report. This report begins by addressing the 143 questions submitted by the respondents, which reflect both enthusiasm and uncertainty about the Compact's implications. The following section characterizes, summarizes, and answers these questions. We hope to provide some clarity on topics such as licensure portability, private practice considerations, financial and legal impacts, and implementation timelines with the most accurate information available at this time. Some questions cannot yet be answered because, according to the Counseling Compact Commission, the Compact will not take effect in any state until late 2025 at the earliest. There are details of the Compact that are yet to be decided. After addressing LPC's questions, this report will then summarize the arguments for and against the Counseling Compact that was voiced by the respondents to the survey. So let's start with the LPC's questions. Part 1. Participating states and compact details. First, the Counseling Compact is not operational yet. At this time, the earliest estimated date it will be available is late 2025. Even if the state has enacted or adopted the compact model legislation, it is not available for counselors for providing services in any compact states yet. Question number 1. What other states are already in the compact? That number is constantly changing as states enter the compact. Currently, there are 38 states in the compact. There's a link in the written compact report, if you've downloaded it, that you can click on that will take you to a website of the Counseling Compact and show you the states that are currently enrolled. Question. Where can we find legislative rules for each participating state? Our understanding is material like laws and legislative rules for each state will not be compiled or maintained by the Compact. The Compact Commission has talked about compiling a list of links to each state, but it will be incumbent upon each LPC to know and adhere to member states' laws, regulations, and scope of practice, and know those if they change. There are also 17 states that will have a required jurisprudence examination. People seeking a privilege to practice in those states must also pass that state's jurisprudence exam before a privilege to practice will be granted. The jurisprudence examination is based on the laws and regulations of that particular state and may be an additional cost to the counselor. Part 2. Status of the compact in Michigan. A number of people asked a series of questions like, why hasn't Michigan passed the compact yet? What stage is Michigan at in adopting the compact? What is the likelihood that Michigan will approve the compact? And when will Michigan vote on this? Adopting the compact requires the model compact legislation to pass both houses of the state legislature and be signed by the governor, a process that is neither quick nor easy. Legislative approval depends on sponsorship by lawmakers and significant lobbying efforts. Historically, our governor has not been particularly supportive of interstate compacts. For example, the initial attempt to pass the PSI Pact was vetoed by the governor. However, each compact is unique, and future decisions will depend on legislative priorities and advocacy efforts. Michigan Mental Health Counselors Association Board has not taken a position for or against the Counseling Compact. Our focus is on understanding what Michigan counselors want and what best serves our profession. Additionally, there is a social work compact currently in development, though it's not as far along in development as the counseling compact is. The PSI Pact is frequently mentioned in compact discussions, but it differs in scope and function. The PSI Pact only allows two specific options for practice. One, telehealth services. The psychologist must be physically located in their home state while providing telehealth services in any other participating states. And they are only allowed to have a temporary in-person practice. And that means psychologists can only offer in-person therapy in a non-home state for only up to 30 days per calendar year. If they do more than 30 days, they have to obtain a full license in that state. So you can see the PSI Pact is very limited in its scope. Question: what is the time frame for Michigan joining once the data set or database is complete? Well, as mentioned already, no work has been done to gain approval of the compact in Michigan. That's why we've reached out to you. If it's going to be passed, it's going to take a great deal of work on the part of many people. We're going to need the support of LPCs from around the state to move forward in that direction if that's what Michigan counselors choose. Part 3. Questions around licensing, fees, and application process. Little information first. Each LPC must have one home state where they are licensed and reside, and that state must be a member of the compact, called a member state. You abide by the laws of your home state to maintain your license in terms of things like CEUs. If your home state is a member of the compact, you can then apply to other compact member states for a privilege to practice in each state you'd like to practice. You pay the fee for the privilege to practice in each state you apply to, and renew that privilege to practice after however many years that state issues their privilege to practice. Typically, it's expected that will be the same number of years as renewing their license. You are not licensed in that state, but you have the privilege to practice in that state. The fees for those privilege to practice licenses or applications will be determined by each state and mostly have not been published yet. Question: what is the proposed fee for licensed professionals to join the compact? Again, those fees are not yet published by most of the member states. Each individual will pay a fee to the counseling compact and a fee to each state they want the privilege to practice in. Each state fee will renew at the same schedule as the state's license renewal. Question: Will there be hidden costs associated with applying for compact privileges? The Compact Commission will add on a service fee of $30 for each state you apply to for the privilege to practice. We don't know what each state will charge for the privilege to practice. Those amounts have yet to be published by the states. Question: what happens if a counselor loses their compact license in one state? Does that affect their ability to practice in Michigan? As we understand it, if there is a sanction against your license in either your home state or a member state where you have a privilege to practice, it must be reported to the compact, and yes, your ability to practice in all member states can or will be revoked. Question: how quickly can Michigan counselors get approved to practice in other states? No one can be approved until the compact goes into effect. Again, the estimated date for member states who have already enacted or adopted the compact is late 2025. Michigan would have to pass the compact model legislation to become part of the compact as described in number 2 above. Question: would I need to take additional exams to practice in other states? You need to have your full license in your home state, and the home state is part of the compact. You do not need to fulfill any additional requirements in other states to gain the privilege to practice, except, again, in those member states that require passing of their jurisprudence exam as well. But while practicing in any member state where you have received the privilege to practice, you must follow all of that state's rules, regulations, and scope of practice. You are not required to fulfill the CEUs of member states where you have the privilege to practice. You're only required to fulfill the CEU requirements of your home state where you reside and are licensed. Section 4, questions about insurance and liability concerns. Will liability insurance cover out-of-state clients? Second question, will I need separate malpractice insurance for each state? Unfortunately, that again is unknown at this time, what type of liability insurance you'll be able to obtain. Since many liability insurance companies already insure therapists in many states, it would seem this should not be an issue. Since the compact is not functional yet, there is no way to tell for sure, though. Second question in this area, how are insurance companies reimbursing out-of-state providers? This is also widely unknown since health insurance companies function within state laws to a large extent, and the compact is not in effect yet. Some insurance companies already don't allow for providers licensed in the state where they live to be reimbursed for seeing a client via telehealth in another state, even though the provider is licensed in the other state where the client is. There's no way to know what impact, positive or negative, there will be on reimbursement rates at this time. Area 5, impact on Michigan and the economy. Primary question that came through was, how will this affect Michigan's already saturated field of therapists? Well, there's no way to know at this time, unfortunately, again. Currently, approximately 10% of Michigan's licensed LPCs already reside outside Michigan. How many therapists will want to practice in Michigan will most likely depend on many factors, including Michigan reimbursement rates, the size of our state population, and perhaps other factors. In theory, counselors will be able to gain the privilege to practice in other states, but they must also, at that point, pay for that privilege to practice at a rate that's yet unknown. For comparison, we tried to research the impact of the PSY Pact on psychologists in Michigan, but we've not been able to find any concrete data on what's currently happening. Certainly, if Michigan was in the compact, counselors from any other member states would easily be able to receive the privileges to practice in Michigan. Large venture capital backed companies will also easily be able to gain privileges to practice for counselors working with them. This will be true across all compact member states. Question: do we know how this will impact Michigan's economy? Hate to say it again, there's no way to know at this point. There is concern among some counselors, or there is concern that many counselors will seek the privilege to practice in Michigan, which could increase competition significantly for Michigan counselors, but we don't know. Will this create competition that reduces rates for Michigan therapists? Hate to say it again, but there is no way to know at this point. But it seems that could be a possibility if we become flooded with therapists. Area 6, concerns about legislative and ethical risks. Couple questions. Will joining the compact put Michigan's LPC legislative protections at risk? And the second question, are we opening the door for psychologists to try to limit our scope of practice again? There's no way to know the answer to those questions at this point without researching it much more thoroughly within LARA and other administrative bodies within the state. It could be the case that we'll open up our law, but we don't know. That's really a legal and legislative question that will have to be studied with the help of our lobbyists. Question: what are the risks of lowering standards with different state licensing rules? Well, we would not be legally lowering our standards because people from other compact member states are not officially licensed here. They simply have a privilege to practice here. You could think of it like a driver's license. Drivers from other states can legally drive in Michigan, but they must follow our driving laws while they're here. A privilege to practice is similar in theory. Some states could have lower standards than Michigan do, but then some may also have higher standards. The compact states that if there is any conflict between a state's licensure law and the compact law supersedes or overrides the state law. The exception is if the conflict has to do with a state constitutional issue. Section 5 questions. Concerns about private practice and large companies. There were a number of questions in this area like, how will the compact affect private practices in Michigan? Will this lead to large venture capital companies taking over smaller private practices? How will Michigan therapists compete with organizations like BetterHelp and similar platforms? What safeguards exist against monopolization of mental health services? These are all good questions to ask, but it's too soon to know the impact the compact will have on them. The compact does allow people to get a privilege to practice in other states, which could be a very positive thing for individual counselors. At the same time, it also allows large platforms to more easily expand. How that will turn out in the long run, we don't know. It's certainly possible, if not likely, venture capital-backed companies could lead to significant numbers of counselors gaining the privilege to practice in Michigan. The compact will also allow any counselor from a member state to easily gain the privilege to practice in Michigan. We may be able to get some clues about this by looking at monopolization in medicine, where in some specialties it's all but eliminated private practices. But whether that will directly translate to counseling is unclear. We are unaware of any protections that exist currently against the monopolization of mental health services. This is something that we at the Michigan Mental Health Counselors Association are beginning to explore more thoroughly. Those are the types of questions that were asked by all the people who filled out our survey. Then we asked people to give their arguments for and against the Counseling Compact. So I'll start by talking about the arguments in favor of the compact. We actually asked people the question, please share any argument for or against the compact you think is important for Michigan counselors to consider. Now, this was from counselors around the state, not generated by us. So here are the arguments in favor. The first category of arguments in favor would be what we would call licensure, mobility, and professional growth types of arguments. Things like the compact would make it easier for counselors to work across state lines. It would allow greater opportunities for professional growth and expansion of my practice. There would be easier reciprocity for licensure, and that's a great benefit. There were improvements or benefits that people listed under access to mental health care, that it could allow more clients access to care, especially in rural areas, and that we need more therapists available across state lines to address the mental health crisis. Another person said, as telehealth has expanded, this would allow us to better serve clients in need. And one person said, this could help clients moving between states continue therapy without interruption. There may be economic and business benefits. The compact would allow people to expand their business and possibly help more clients. Another person said this makes financial sense. Counselors should not have to pay excessive fees to practice in other states. And some said it would increase job opportunities for Michigan counselors. A number of people talked about legislative or professional benefits of the compact, saying that joining the compact keeps Michigan in line with national trends in mental health care, and that standardized licensure requirements across states would be a good thing, and it would help to elevate the professional standing of counselors nationwide. The arguments against or concerns about the compact. The first general area of concern was, we would define it, I guess, as threats to private practice and market competition. A number of comments were around issues like, could this lead to a flood of out-of-state therapists taking Michigan jobs? Or what prevents large telehealth corporations from monopolizing the field? I already alluded to that a little bit earlier from the questions. And would this drive down wages and reimbursement rates for Michigan counselors? And how does this impact independent private practice counselors? There were licensing and bureaucratic issues that were listed as concerns, like, will there be hidden costs associated with applying for compact privileges? They probably won't be hidden, but there will be costs. Are there significant differences in state laws that could create issues? Again, that's a responsibility of the individual therapist under the compact. There were insurance and liability concerns that came up. Will malpractice insurance cover out-of-state clients? And will insurance reimbursement rates change, which we've already mentioned briefly? Could this create confusion for clients about what state laws apply to their therapy? And another concern area was legislative and ethical risks. Does this open the door for unwanted legislative changes, which we've already alluded to briefly? Are there risks with the scope of practice issue coming up again from raising its head from 2019? And would it weaken our standards? Those are the concerns. So you can get a sense of both the pluses and the minuses. Now I'm just going to mention a few words about the demographics. You already know how many people answered questions, or how many questions were answered. On our survey, we found that of the Michigan counselors who responded, about 90% of them were living in Michigan, but 10% of the licensed counselors completing the survey actually live outside of Michigan and are licensed within Michigan right now. We asked people, how would you rate the following statement? I'm in favor of adopting the counseling compact in Michigan. You could answer strongly agree, agree, unsure, disagree, strongly disagree. Strongly agree, 51%. About half of counselors strongly agree that they're in favor of adopting the counseling compact. Another 13% said that they agree. So about 63 or 64% say they agree or strongly agree. The remaining, 36% are either 17% of them are unsure, and the remainder, around 20%, disagree or strongly disagree. And then one of the final things we asked was how valuable was the previous information we sent out, the video and the written report, and we were happy to learn that 85% of the people said it was valuable or very valuable getting that information. We're glad to hear that and glad to provide it. Let me just conclude this little report by thanking all those counselors who responded to our survey. If you have additional questions, please contact us at MMHCA board at mmhcanow.org. And that address will be placed underneath this recording on YouTube. And if you are interested in becoming a member of Michigan Mental Health Counselors Association and advocating for LPCs in Michigan, please go to our website, MMHCA Now, N-O-W, mmhcanow.org, and click on the Join and join us. Our aim at the Michigan Mental Health Counselors Association is to continue this conversation and provide Michigan counselors with the information needed to make the best decision for Michigan. Interestingly, of the 11,000 people we sent out that last informational packet to, over 8,000 people opened it. We want to thank people for taking the time to do that. We believe that this is an important decision, and we believe that the more of us that are involved in the decision and the conversation, the better that decision will be. Thank you.